Good day, Philippines. Hello, Region 1. Aloha, San Carolinian learners. Airing live from the Mango Bamboo capital of the Philippines, San Carlos City. You're tuning in to CCN Broadcast Center, a virtual home of every SDO-SEC learner, where passion is the key. Learning paves the way. With our division mantra, developing creativity, maximizing versatility. This is your CCN Broadcast Center. CCN Broadcast Center, a virtual home of every SDO-SEC learner.
Good day, brilliant learners. I am Kristalyne Salvador, your online MAPEH teacher. So before we begin to our main topic, let's first have a recap or review from our previous lesson. Can you still recall our previous lesson? You're right, that is all about micronutrient deficiency. But can you still define them? Okay, so when we're talking about micronutrient deficiency, it is a lack of essential vitamins and minerals required in small amounts by the body for proper growth and development. So as you see on the screen, there is an activity for you to be assessed if you still remember the common micronutrient deficiencies. For the direction, complete the table below with the needed information. Choose your answer from the choices in the box below. Write your answer in your activity notebook. So grab your pens and your notebooks. Okay, are you ready? Let's start. So what the micronutrient deficiency can be prevented if we eat foods such as dark green leafy vegetables, legumes, red meat, and iron-fortified food products? The answer? You're right. It is anemia and iron deficiency anemia. Next. Which micronutrient deficiency disorder can be prevented if we eat foods such as breads, iodized table salt, cheese, salt water, shellfish, soy milk, eggs, frozen yogurts, and soy sauce? What's the answer? Very good. It is iodine deficiency disorder. For the last one, which micronutrient deficiency can be prevented if a certain individual eats foods such as animal products, orange and yellow fruits, dark green leafy vegetables, and palm oil? Okay, so that is vitamin A deficiency. So I can say that you can still recall all the things that we have learned from our previous lessons. So I conclude that you are now ready to begin with our new topic. So our topic for today is all about health, quarter 2, module 5, entitled Eating Disorders. So its objective is based from the milk, which is explain the characteristics, signs, and symptoms of eating disorders. Discuss ways of preventing, controlling, and eating disorders. So I have here an activity. Please take a look at the picture. What can you see? Maybe you can see different people with different characteristics, different body build. You can see there's a fat one, a thin one, a girl who has a lot of foods to intake, and the other one is trying to vomit out the foods that she has intake. So how is this connected to our lesson? So these are examples of eating habits that can result to disorders. Which disorders? Eating disorders. So what is an eating disorder? So when we're talking about eating disorder, these are the illnesses that are characterized by irregular eating habits and extreme distress or concern about body weight or shape. So when we're talking about eating disorders, maybe they are the person who is experiencing this has problems psychologically. Maybe she is stressed out. That can result to eating disturbances that may involve inadequate or excessive food intake, which can basically cause harm to a person's well-being. So there are common forms of eating disorders. These disorders are anorexia nervosa, you have binge eating disorder, you also have bulimia, you also have pica, rumination disorder, avoidant, and others. But in this topic, in this lesson, we will only tackle 3 of the most common form, and that will be anorexia nervosa, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. So are you ready? Okay, so let's proceed. So what can you say about the picture? Okay, so as you look at the picture, you can see a young girl who is looking at her reflection. Okay, so she is very thin, but then again, she sees her reflection as very fat. Okay, because she is having a delusion. Okay, so she's having a delusion that results to this view. So what kind of disease can it be? Okay, so this is called anorexia nervosa. So when we're talking about anorexia, it is an eating disorder that is characterized dangerously low body weight. Okay, so treatment-seeking individuals often describe an intense fear of gaining weight or looking fat. They tend to have distorted internal perceptions of the size of their body and their weight, as you can also see in the picture. Okay, why is it dangerously low? Okay, it is because people with anorexia or anorexic individual tends to ignore or to avoid foods because they are afraid of gaining weight. Okay, so there are other signs and symptoms of anorexia nervosa. So this could be dry skin, it could be fainting. Why fainting? Because of course they starve themselves, so there's a possibility that they will faint. Dry skin because eating disorders are often associated with dehydration. Okay, so brittle hair, they also have their dehydration. Loss of body fat, irregular heartbeat, it's because of starvation primarily, and loss of menstruation and wasting away of muscle tissues. So if you have a friend who is suffering from anorexia, these are the things that we could do. Okay? So number 1, do not get frustrated if she does not acknowledge the problem. Why? Because we all know that anorexic client is not merely thinking about their actual physical appearance only, but they also tend to have emotional problems. They also have social problems. Maybe they are triggered, they are being pressured. That's why we must ask rather the siblings, the parents, the teachers, or whoever who are close to that person. We must know the main reason why did that certain individual fell into that kind of disease or illness. Next one, we have to try to get information on these disorders, okay, so that we can provide them the right thing to do. We can refer them to what place they can go to, okay. We will be able to know how to treat them. Next one is avoid directing comments. Why? Avoid directing comments about their physical appearance because anorexic patients or anorexic individuals are often have low self-esteem. Okay? So if we always direct comments regarding their body, maybe it will lead to more low self-esteem. Okay? Instead of boosting their self-esteem up, it will be be lowering down. Next one, it is important to remember how important she is to you and how you are proud to be his friend. Clients with these illnesses, not just in anorexic patients, okay, they need understanding, they need acceptance, they don't need judgments. So, if we let them feel that they are being accepted, that they are being that we understand them, maybe in fact we can boost their self-confidence, and maybe they can say to themselves that I can accept myself because she can accept me for who I am, whatever I look like, however I may appear to be. Okay? And the last one is, although unwilling to relate, try to integrate her into the groups. Call her and not favor their isolation. Do not recommend isolation, because going within the groups, it will give us some distractions on the problems that we encounter. It can divert our attentions. And perhaps joining a group can boost our social well-being. Okay, so that is all about anorexia nervosa. Are you ready for the next one? Okay, what can you say about the image? It's not mukbang, my dear class, my dear students. It is another kind of eating disorder. Okay, so as you can see, there are lots of foods that is being eaten by the individual because maybe he feels something that's stressing him out, because in this disorder, they use foods to relieve their stress. So what disorder might this be? Okay, so this is called binge eating disorder. So when we're talking about binge eating disorder, it is often a mixed-up way of dealing with or avoiding difficult emotions. So usually, people who binge eat aren't aware of what's driving them to overeat. They usually are unhappy about their weight, may have large weight swings, and often feel depressed. So what are the other manifestations can you see, or the signs and symptoms of binge eating? We have lack of control once one begins to eat. Okay, so once a binge eater starts eating, they don't have that control. They also feel depressed, grief, anxiety, shame, disgust, or self-hatred about eating behaviors. But can we do something to break the cycle of binge eating? Yes, we can. So how? This is how to break the cycle of binge eating. Okay, so you better stop restricting. The more we restrict, the more we avoid something, the more urge we feel, okay, of doing that thing. Another, stop eating processed foods. Sometimes processed foods, or most of the time, processed foods are not healthy. Next one, stop ignoring your hunger. If you ignore your hunger, of course, you starve and you find more. You try to find more foods to eat. Next one, start eating nutrient dense. I know in TLE that we have already discussed the food pyramid, so we already know what are the different foods should we take. Exactly. And lastly, start consistently eating. Okay, so that is binge eating. So may I ask you, what are the two? Okay, what are the two eating disorders that have discussed earlier? Can you name it? Okay, so we have anorexia nervosa and binge eating disorder. Now let's proceed to the third one. So what can you see? What can you say about the picture? What are the different images can you see? What does this image pertains to? Okay, so what do you see? There's a pizza, donuts, cakes, foods. What else? Okay, there's a toilet bowl. So how is it associated to the next disease or illness, disorder? This disease or illness is called bulimia. It's associated to bulimia. So what is bulimia? Bulimia is a serious, potentially life-threatening eating disorder. So people with bulimia may secretly binge. So when we're talking about binge, of course, that is eating largely or large amounts of food with a lost control over the eating. Okay. The difference between binge eating and bulimia is that in bulimia, the bulimic person tends to purge. Okay. So they are abruptly, violently taking away, what? The foods that they intake. Why? Because they are trying to get rid of the extra calories in an unhealthy way. So that is bulimia. So what is the other signs and symptoms that manifest in bulimia? Okay, we have there damaged heart. Why? It's due to starvation. Okay. Next, damaged kidney due to laxative abuse. Why? If some bulimic person or individual thinks that purging is not enough, they use laxative so that they can excrete. Okay, they can excrete the nutrients, the foods that they have intake. So we know the process of excretion. Okay, we have already learned that from science. Okay, so we also have dehydration. We also have enlarged stomach, tooth enamel injury, sores in the mouth, and throats are often red. Why? It's because of the purging. Can we do something with this type of people? Can we help them? Yes. How? By motivating them. So how can we motivate our friends who is having a bulimia? So bulimia is not about food. It's about how they feel. So we go through their emotion. We talk to them. Okay? We listen to them. So feelings and thoughts are just that, feelings and thoughts. They must have a rapport. They must build a relationship between their therapists or their friends, perhaps. They should also build a strong family connection, or what you call the support system. Okay? And also, they must help develop their ways of supporting and caring for themselves. Because how can you help them if they do not help themselves? Okay? And lastly, look at yourself in a third person perspective. So that are the 3 common eating disorders. Now let's have a quick recap. Anorexia nervosa is an eating disorder characterized by severe restriction to take foods because of fear of gaining weight and become obese. Okay? They don't want to get fat because they are afraid that maybe some of their friends might not like them if they are fat. Of course. And it is a psychological disorder that affects both physical and emotional aspects of an individual. Okay? The characteristics of people who tend to develop anorexia nervosa are outside pressures. Okay? So they have low self-esteem. Why? Because of these outside pressures. High expectation from their parents, maybe, from their teachers, from their friends. Okay? So they are afraid to not meet that certain expectation. Okay? So the need to achieve and the need to be accepted. So that's very important. So we must make them feel that they are accepted, that they are understood. Next is people with anorexia nervosa become malnourished. Why? Because they tend to put away all the foods that they see. Okay? They avoid food and may cause death in severe stage if not treated earlier. Next is bulimia. Bulimia is a psychological disorder characterized by consuming a large quantity of foods for a short period of time. If you know Dao Ming Se, okay, if you are an F4 fanatic, okay, I seldom remember my teacher before when she says that. Bulimia is Dao Ming Se. Dao Ming Se is Dao Ming Kain, Dao Ming Su Ka. That's why as you see in the picture, there's a toilet bowl and lots of foods. So they eat and eat. So they don't restrain themselves from eating. But then again, after they eat, they puke it. Okay, so they vomit it. Okay, so that's their way. So people with bulimia disorder are very concerned with their weight and shape. So to avoid gaining weight, people with this disorder take laxatives, induce vomiting, go on dieting, or do excessive exercises to get rid of the food that they have consumed. Binge eating. Binge eating disorder is characterized by compulsive eating. So people with this disorder lose control over eating large amounts of food in one sitting, but they do not eliminate it. They don't think about whether they will get fat or not. Okay? So this eating disorder may be an indicator for that person to use food to eliminate unwanted emotion. So when we're talking about binge eating, it's all about how the people or the person feels. It's what this kind of disorder affects the individual. Okay? So to cope depression and fight stress, they eat. So many people with binge eating disorder are overweight and obese. Okay? So as I go on with the slides or the presentation, we have already tackled the meanings, the signs and symptoms, but just a few for the prevention, okay, side. So we must always take a point or we must always think that prevention is always better than cure. Okay, so what will we do if ever some of our friends, some of our colleagues, some of our brother, sister, our family members have these kinds of eating disorders? Of course, prevention is always better than cure, so we must avoid eating disorder. So how? We have to eat fresh vegetables. We should avoid finger foods. We should have enough sleep. We must drink enough water since, as I say earlier, almost all of the eating disorders cause dehydration. We must do some exercise and avoid skipping meals. And we need to eat more high fiber foods because high fiber foods is like the broom in our body. So they clean out our body they clean away the toxins in our body, and eventually it will be excreted through your urine or your feces. Okay, now since we have already tackled, I hope and I know that you already know what are the different characteristics of eating a person who has eating disorder. So can you determine who among the people have an eating disorder and which disorder do they have? So we have letter A, B, C, and D. So on your notebook, write number 1, it is anorexia nervosa. Letter B, bulimia. And number 3, binge eating disorder. So I'm giving you 3 seconds to write your answers and choose whether the the person with the letter A, B, or C, or D suits the disorder. Okay, let's try and check. Okay, so in bulimia, the correct answer is, okay, letter D. Why? It's letter D because, as you can see, she wanted to vomit. Okay, she is nauseated. So the characteristic of bulimia is that she tends to eat a lot, but then again, threw it up. Okay, so the correct answer of bulimia is letter D. How about anorexia? In anorexia nervosa, that is letter B. Very good. So why? Why letter B? Because anorexia nervosa is characterized by avoiding foods. Okay? So anorexic patients avoid foods because they are afraid to get weight gain. Good job. Okay, next we have binge eating disorder. So when we're talking about binge eating disorder, of course, it is obviously the fat one, okay? Because they don't usually think about their physical appearance might look like, but they would just like to eat because they are having some emotional problems, and that foods are their stress relievers, okay? So that would be letter A. Okay, so then did you get all the answers right? Okay, if you did, good job. If you don't, you can just text or PM me so that I can respond to your queries. Okay. So there are more activities that will be found on your modules. You can choose either one or two more to answer. And let's discuss it as you text me. I will keep my lines open, okay? So that would be the end of my presentation of my lesson. Thank you for watching. Good day. God bless. And may I say this to you, by sharing, you can gain more learnings. Thank you.
Good day, Philippines. Hello, Region 1. Aloha, San Carlinian learners. Airing live from the mango bamboo capital of the Philippines, San Carlos City. You're tuning in to CCN Broadcast Center, a virtual home of every SDO-SEC learner, where passion is the key. Learning paves the way. With our division mantra, developing creativity, maximizing versatility. This is your CCN Broadcast Center. CCN Broadcast Center, a virtual home of every SDO-SEC learner.